Oh my god, guys. It has been way too long trying to get these Evergreen miners replotted and working again. Oh, I don't know what happened, guys. Like, I mean, we'll go back in time a couple months in this video, but this has been a multi-month process, and I'm still not convinced these are going to work continuously well. I really want to, like, I really like the product, but I just feel like sometimes the public purchasers of the Evergreen product are the guinea pig, and I don't feel like that's quite fair. And I feel like sometimes they got to work out some stuff, or at least like advertise it as prototypical before, you know, really advertising it as do this or this is the latest and greatest. Just my thoughts, but we'll get to throughout all of that in this whole video that, like I said, it's going to take place over many months here. So, I guess we might as well get to how this all started back, I think it was September. No, it was August. July. If you guys remember, my original green ones, these are now hard case, which we'll get to also in this video, why that happened. But my original ones were 3D printed, original like batch 2 or batch 3 units, back when they were doing like barely any units and were a much smaller company out of a garage. You know, kind of expected to have some issues there at that point. If you guys remember some of my videos, I had to get my hub replaced. It ended up just completely not working anymore. So they did replace that. I got a new one. Of course, that new one also stopped working, which is why this is just hollow here. Is it just a placeholder at this point? Same component died again. So I don't know. Anyway, something about the old pies. So they did upgrade to the new pies. And this is where I get like, okay, so that was the prototype. Then you finally had a good product, the Tails edition. Everything worked fine. C5 compression. I've never had an issue with this hub. It has a Rock 5 board in there. Like it is steady as she goes. Like no problem. It's pretty much what the first product should have been. You know, since this was always advertised as plug and play. And then, oh boy, did I make a mistake. I was like, I got all these C5 drives, and I have these C0 drives, you know, no compression. They're so inefficient. Look, they're offering replotting services to C29. I'm like, oh my gosh, C29, that sounds massive. Well, it is massive, guys. It's like 211% efficiency. But oh my gosh, was it not what I was expecting for plug and play. And we're going to go through that whole process now. So let's get to it. Let's go back in time here to how this all started. How's it going, guys? Motor City Miner here, coming at you from the basement farm. Yes, we got some shipments in. And this one I've been waiting for a little while on, because if we check out my CHIA miner over here, the Evergreen, you'll notice in the stack there's only orange right now. I had 4 green for my original starter kit plus, starter kit pro. I can't remember what they were called back then, but the one that came with 4. And you know, as I had in my prior videos, they did switch to injection molding. Those were like 3D printed. So I found out that Evergreen is now with C29 compression being released, which essentially gets you double the amount of plots you would normally be able to put on the same size hard drive. There's been increases in compression over time on the plot sizes. The original sets obviously had no compression. Then there was C3 compression. These all have C5 compression, the Tails kits. And then recently C29 compression came out, which just kind of blew the rest out of the water. Like the C5 was essentially like a 20 to 25% gain in plots on an equivalent hard drive, but C29 is a 200% plus increase in plots on the same size. So a huge increase, which really didn't necessarily make the old ones obsolete, but you know, why not replot them and get that additional storage capacity out of them? And I found out that Evergreen provides replotting services it's a little on the steep side, I think, at $55 each. I do know plotting takes time, but considering, you know, you've already bought all this stuff once, I don't know. I wish there was like a discount. Like maybe if you were only sending in one, it was 55, but like, you know, for each consecutive one you send in, maybe it goes down in price. Anyway, curious your thoughts on that. It's not super steep, but again, you've already paid for these once, which I think, you know, typically like just one of these units is like $300. Never buy them in an individual unit though. Worst way to go about it. Wait for sales. They always have sales for holidays, stuff like that, and always buy in a larger pack to get your cost per terabyte down. But anyway, so for about $55 each, I sent in those 4 original ones to be replotted because they had no compression. At least these have some compression, which gets them a little extra earnings. And I was like, you know, these 4 originals would be a good testing to see how the replot process goes with Evergreen, how it works, is it worthwhile, stuff like that. Obviously, on the worthwhile front, you're probably going to be like, well, CHIA is like pretty much unprofitable, even with no wattage at the moment. And yes, that's true. Again, do your own research, not financial advice. I just kind of like the CHIA project, and you know, I think it's worth me getting a bag of it. Even so, and I like mining. I've say that in every video. I don't like buying. I like mining. So, but yeah, send in those 4. Pretty smooth process initially, I'd say. You know, you just make a ticket in their Discord. They'll hook you up with an invoice and a place to ship them to. You are responsible for shipping. That's also why I'm not a big fan of the $55 per drive. I think it should go down per drive, as I already mentioned. But, you know, you do have to pay the shipping one way. They'll pay for it to ship it back to you. So at least you're not paying both ways. But you ship it to them. And then they were telling me about a 2 to 3 week turnaround. It ended up being more like a 4 to 5 week turnaround, which isn't atypical for Evergreen. Again, I'm always going to be honest with you guys. Awesome product. Like, really makes CHIA mining more accessible, because honestly, one of the hardest things about CHIA mining is the whole plotting process, and it's time consuming and all that other stuff. And love the plug and play nature here. But I'm always honest with you guys too. Evergreen is slow. They're working on it. They've gotten better. It used to be like, you know, 6 month lead time. Obviously, as less orders are coming in, people are leaving the crypto space, that number's coming down. But, you know, I wasn't surprised, but, you know, I really didn't think that 2 to 3 week would happen. I really wanted to believe it would, but it didn't. But they are working out a new facility to up their capacity, so maybe in the future they won't always be so behind on orders. But if you go on the Discord, usually it seems like everything's always like a week later than you were supposed to get it. But anyway, so I sent them in. They got back, so we'll check them out, see what we did. So like I said, these were originally the 3D printed ones. I don't know if when they replot them, if they put them in new containers. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. The old containers also had like a completely different plug. So if we hop back over here real quick, you'll see that I have like converters on all these for the old ones. So I had to, because the new power supplies are 2.5 by 5.5, but the originals were 2.1 by 5.5. So I had to get converters for all those drives. So just another thing to note on the newer system is they did change the plug size at some time. Plus going to the 3D mold and or 3D injection mold. Wow. So they did end up just giving me brand new cases for my hard drives. So that's pretty cool. You know, the injection mold is so much better than, I just love the injection mold, guys. Kind of sad to see my original 3D printed ones. You know, I'll never see those again, but I'm not going to complain too much because this is a pretty cool upgrade. So that should mean that I should actually not need to use my adapters either anymore. So really cool stuff there. So I guess they didn't tell me this, and I can't confirm or deny if it's true for all replots, but at least for mine, I sent them the old OG 3D printed cases, and they put my replotted drives in a new case. So you might get a new case if you send them stuff. So that's pretty cool. So we'll get these undone. There should be 4 in here. Yep, there's another one. Cool. Looks like, I wonder if, because they're replots, like, they might have just given me, like, some ones that didn't come out the greatest, so that they don't want to sell to actual people. But still, honestly, it's an awesome upgrade either way. Even if these are, like, you know, maybe you can kind of see some scuffs and stuff. That these are maybe unideal specimens, but honestly, again, it's free upgrade, so I'm not going to complain. I mean, unless you're like nostalgia factor, I'm sure they'd give you them back how you want them. But again, I'm guessing this is because they changed the output, so they're trying to probably make them all compatible for everyone. And honestly, that makes sense. So yeah, not going to complain about a free upgrade. Again, I didn't expect this though, so that's why I can't really tell you if this would happen if you got yours replotted, or you know, did I, again, so you can kind of see some scuff, so maybe they are just for replots. If you have the old cases before they went to injection molding, maybe they're just using you know, unideal specimens, which again, completely fine. Cool stuff. So that's all 4, so that should be all 4 of mine. So I'm gonna put them up on top of there, and then we'll plug them in and see if they show up in the app and go from there, I guess. All right, so we're pretty much ready now. As you can see, we got everything plugged in. Did confirm that I no longer need the adapters, so that's a nice benefit of moving to the new cases, and which have it, like I said, a different PCB in them. Other benefit is they have the status indicator lights, which you can see flashing when they occasionally flash here. There you go. The original hard drives didn't have that, so the only thing I have left to do is actually to plug my USB for those 4. So those 4, they don't go into the PSU where all the others go to share. They have this little adapter here, but yeah, I'm gonna have to plug this in there, and we'll see if it pops up. But I do want to switch over to the app when I plug this in, just so we can see if it does register these 4 drives. The other thing I don't know is when you replot, if these get new farmer keys, farmer IDs. So I guess I'll find that out when I plug them in and see if my old farmer IDs show up poolside, or if I have to use the new farmer ID to see these mining on the pool. So originally I had 4 because I bought 10 at once, which all got the same farmer ID. Obviously the original 4 all had the same, and then I bought 2 sets of 5, so I had 4 different farmer IDs mining to my wallet, but they show up as 4 separate workers essentially on the pool. But yeah, so we're gonna switch over to the app and plug this in and see if these show up. Let's do it. In the app now, you're gonna go over to your actual unit, go to diagnostic mode. You have to do this while you're on the same local network. So you can see my current 20 drives connected. Those are all the orange ones. But yeah, when you plug these in, it should start doing some stuff at the bottom of the screen here. So we're gonna plug this in. Hopefully we get 4 new ones, and you can see the type of compression here in this chart where I'm scrolling. So you can see all these other drives are C5. Again, the original drives that these were C nothing, C0, but now they should be C29. So excited to plug these in. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully they all start up. I just put the USB in. Oh, and there goes. Holy cow! Lots of loading. So let's see what happens. It usually takes a little bit of time, so you know, be patient. There it goes. It just updated to 24 drives. So we're making progress. The newest ones will always be at the bottom of the list, so you can see those there. The temps are super low because obviously they haven't been doing anything. Oh, I forgot these were 18 terabyte drives. Okay, cool. So that means in theory they should get 36 plus terabytes worth of plots now, so that's cool. I have 16 and 18 terabyte drives. depending on when I bought them. I don't know what Evergreen currently has, but I had I had 14 18 terabyte drives and 10 16 terabyte drives. So again, you gotta wait for these to load. It takes a little while. We're just gonna have to wait. I don't know what all this stuff means in this black menu here. But just let it do a thing. Sit here and let it load. Probably takes, I guess it depends on if it's installing a new farmer ID and farmer key as well. Again, I don't know. If it does have to do that, just like when you first set up these devices, it does take quite a while. So I'm gonna skip ahead and wait until these all pop up, because it could be a little while here. All right, so it didn't actually take that long, maybe a couple minutes here, but you can see it has actually populated. Interestingly, it's saying C0 as the compression type, but you can see that it actually is the C29 because of the amount of plots. So again, that 16 terabyte drive right above it's doing 182, but if I go up to an 18 terabyte, which is what these would have normally been, it's normally 205 plots, and now we're at 347. So not quite a 200% increase, but that's massive. That is what is that? That's approximately a 75% increase in capacity compared to a C5 compressed one. Again, uncompressed, they were a lot lower. I wish I remembered what these 18 terabyte drives were before. I want to say it was like maybe 160 maybe. Yeah, that sounds about right. So I'm going to make a quick correction here. It's only a 75% increase over C5, but the 200% is over what it would be without any compression. Sorry, that I said that right earlier in this video. I screwed it up now. So yeah, that would be right, because that would put these right around about 155 plots, which sounds about right for what an 18 terabyte with no compressed was. So like in the 150, 160 range versus C5 compression got up to 205, but now C29, we're looking at 347 plots, which is just absolutely massive over the like 155 these were before I did this process. So, brings some life to those old drives, that's for sure. Again, depending on what you currently have, it may or may not make sense. Again, these were uncompressed drives, had no compression. So it's a massive increase, 200% increase. So it definitely made sense, long term to do the upgrade. I've been debating if it makes sense to do it for my C5 drives. It would be cool to get more capacity, but it's not as big of an increase, but that's still pretty big. 205 up to 347, that's still 150 extra plots. Which for $55, like I said, is a little expensive, but anyway, food for thought for me in the future. But it looks like we're all set up here. We're gonna go back a little bit. Yeah, you can see our mounted storage is now up to 409 terabytes. I think that is correct, right? Let's do some math real quick. Bring up the calculator. So we had 18 terabytes times 4. That's 72, and I know that my unit was at 334-ish terabytes before, so 406, 409, yep. So it has properly loaded them all up, so that's great. So we're going to head on over to my PC and see if we can find where these things are mining, because I really, like I said, don't know if it's mining to the same farmer ID or not. So you can see the temperatures are rising, so good things there. So let's head on over to the computer and out of the app here and see how this is going poolside.
admittedly, it has been a little time since um, I tried starting up these units, and it honestly, it has been a huge pain. Um, I want to be honest with you guys. I have had so many problems with these C29 drives that when they do work, they're awesome. But the problem is that's only when they work. And I can't show you all the times they haven't worked because it's been at this point about 3 months since I got them back from Evergreen. Again, it took a little longer to get them back from Evergreen than I had liked, but I got them back like mid-September, and honestly, didn't even get them working for over a month. It was about middle of October before I got them working, and then um, I can only go back 30 days in here, but you can see periods where they weren't working again. So again, it was like maybe October 15th ish or around then that I finally got them working for the first time. They worked for about maybe 2 weeks, and right before this, this is all my statistics and farm size and plotting, all that fun stuff. But you can see right before this November 8th date that it was on the way up. So I did lose them after about 2 weeks. They went down for about most of the first week of November. Evergreen has been good at, with their customer service and getting things operating again. So it was like maybe November 6th or something, right before this graph goes back any further, where they got them back up and running again. I worked for, again, about another 2 weeks, and then it was offline again. And all my other units were working this whole time. So this is just the C29 drives, those 4 drives. And because they do have their own, I did confirm they do have their own farmer ID, so they show up as their own worker. So yeah, the rest of my units, my C5 units, they've worked nonstop this whole time. But unfortunately, the C29 units didn't work for the first month I had them. They worked for about 2 weeks, went out the beginning of November, right before this graph starts. I got them working for like 2 weeks, then they were off for a few more days. Not off, like they weren't working. And then finally had them pretty reliably running for a while. They do have these big swings, but that's in farm size. This is calculated because it's based on submitted shares, and C29 submits a lot less shares just because it's putting a lot higher point values to each share that's submitted, essentially. So you have much bigger swings. Again, I have 4 of these drives, so I should be getting about what is that? Like 100 and shoot, like a 150, 160 average. But obviously, there's going to be times where it's like almost 300, and times where it actually goes down pretty low. Um, and just so you guys know, so these are kind of my partial submittals, like for the last, this is one day, so you can see how few partials there are. So that's why you can have big swings. But back to what I was actually talking about, if I go back to the 30-day graphs here on all these. Um, Again, so the second time it went down, got it back up and running about 2 days later, with help from the customer service and remoting into the unit. Worked for quite a while that time. It was the longest I've ever had them up and operating, was this November 15th, until again, it'll slowly come down. But I would say it was probably somewhere on the 27th where I lost them. And then obviously that was right around the holiday. So customer service isn't super available right around Thanksgiving. So I ended up being out of, commission for a little while there. And then they've been on again since then. Um, there have been these brief drops down to low, but that's just because of, again, um, the infrequency of partials, and that was just a bad luck zone essentially for those couple days. Um, where it came down, where it actually says like farm size of 0, but those were not actually not working. It was just bad luck. And this is kind of, you can see all the points and all the partials that have been submitted. You can kind of see how that is. But yeah, so at this point, what is that? That's 4 different periods that I've had them not working. A 1 month period when I first got the drives, which was rectified mid October. end of October, I had like a brief outage for like 3-4 days, and mid-November had a brief outage for a few days, and then late November, early December, another outage. And it's just been really, really frustrating. I'll be honest. It's plug and play is not the way to describe these C29 drives. My C5's running like a dream, work all the time. C29, I don't know, guys. And it's not. It isn't just mine. If you go in their Discord, a lot of people are having problems with the C29, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. And some of that was, me not being informed enough about CHIA and how it operates and how it mines. Um, I mean, that's why I went the plug and play route, because I have so much other mining things on my mind that learning how to do a one-off, hard drive mining chain wasn't really something I had time for. But I should have done a little more research on what the compression levels mean and everything. So I do want to talk about that a little bit just so you guys kind of know. And maybe you already know this, maybe you don't. Maybe you find this helpful. But yeah, Evergreen uses Gigahorse for all their compression. And that's pretty much what most people use in CHIA if they use compression, unless they have something private that they do themselves. And this is kind of their graph here that kind of tells you the level, the percent gain you would expect. So C5 is 130% gain in storage, so which is about right. A 30% gain over what you have, or the C29, the 211%. Which is what these 4 drives that we're talking about do. And again, the difficulty on those partials is 10,000, so significantly higher than 100. So that's why you have so much less partials being submitted and much wider swings in your hash rate. That's not the right word, but we'll call it hash rate. But the important thing on this graph really is how many of certain things it takes to uncompress compressed files or compressed plots. Now, I always knew this for the like C3. Evergreen only ever had C3, C5, and now C29 as options. They never had all these other ones. They've only done C0, essentially no compression, which is what these 4 drives were: C3, C5, and now C29. Now, for C3 and C5, these, as you can see, you can have a ton of drives supported by just a single graphics card or a CPU. And actually, how Evergreen decided on these is based on whatever CPU was in the whatever the capabilities of the CPU that was in the hub, whether it was a V1 hub, V2, or V3. That's what they limited to using for compression. So that's why my C5 drives have never had an issue. They are locally decompressed plots by the CPU in the Tails Edition V3 hub. It doesn't. You don't have to use it. This is just saying, if you use graphics card, but there's the other options for the CPU and stuff as well. But yeah, essentially C5 and C3 or no compression for the Evergreen miners. It's now my understanding, having talked with them and with support, that those levels were always done as a local decompression by your local unit is decompressing the plots. Sounds great. Very reliable. Everything's in one place. Bring in C29. As you can see here, C29, every single gigabyte, it's saying for 48 gigabytes. So we don't have 48 gigabyte drives, but we'll just say like you had a 48 gigabyte drive. It's saying you would need at least like a 3060 Ti could only actually decompress 0.83 of that capacity, which is crazy. Like you actually need like strong graphics cards to decompress C29 plots. Okay, but we're not buying graphics cards on Evergreen, are we? No, you're not. You don't get any graphics cards. So this is actually, as they've just described it to me, is remote decompression. So what they've done is, with their new products, which are all C29, is they have a GPU farm in a warehouse that is designed to decompress plots from their Evergreen miners that they've sold out to the public. So your device is actually communicating to their farm to be decompressed rather than locally decompressed with your own hub. So this adds a ton of points of failure in the system that were not there prior. And this is the part I wish I understood and looked into before I decided to get these plots redone as C29. In hindsight, I wish I had done all my plots as C5. I wish I just asked them to replot them as C5. That way, all my drives would be C5. All the other 20 were already C5. It was just these four that were C0, zero compression. It would have been nice if they were so all C5, moved on, and I could just operate like that. So very important, guys. C29 is remote decompression when you are buying from Evergreen. Yes, you could theoretically use GigaHorse yourself, compress your own plots on your own local hard drives, run your own unit, set up your own miner, and then you could, decompress them yourself if you had a 4090 or whatever. But for Evergreen's units and their business model and how they sell these units, in the end, you're actually relying on them to decompress your drives that are at your house. And again, that adds so many points of failure, network connection issues. Honestly, so I'll kind of go over the issues I had at each of these off periods and what the issues were, as best as I can tell, and best as they could tell me. So the very first one, which was where it didn't work for a whole month, was that they had forgot when they replotted my drives to put in that farmer ID into their database at their graphics card, server area. So my unit was connected. It was showing all the drives connected, and it was outputting and trying to connect to this remote IP, which is their, decompression farm. But the decompression farm was refusing to take on jobs because that farmer ID was not in their system on that side. So for a whole month, I could not get anything to work until they figured out that their database was missing the requirements, essentially saying that my drives existed and they should be decompressed by these graphics cards they have. Super annoying. Okay. And then we went ahead, they did fix it, worked for 2 weeks, and then we had another outage. So what was the issue that time? Well, they were having internet service provider issues at their decompression farm. So again, just another point of failure. This time, instead of their database, it's their internet service provider. You would hope that they can keep that pretty reliable, being that this is how they're selling all their products now. But again, you're relying on someone else rather than your own internet. Okay, so then what happened on the 13th? Well, my internet actually crapped out. My internet service provider went down. And sure enough, when I restarted the unit, it refused to connect to their farm for whatever reason. Like, this was on my side now. For whatever reason, the unit, when it restarted, was not getting a connection out. Um, but so what they do, they remoted into my unit, they restarted certain components within it, and sure enough, it was able to connect to their remote decompression farm. And again, that's exactly what happened again November 28th. Pretty much any time I've had a power outage at this point, I can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to have to reach out to Evergreen and their customer support to get my 4 drives working again. The other ones work fine because they're C5, locally decompressed. It's this remote decompression that really is throwing a wrench in everything, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think it's, obviously there's some error on my part here, not doing the research enough to understand how C29 works. And the second I saw this, I'm like, well, how does this work? Like, I don't have these graphics cards or anything. They're like, oh, we're doing the decompression remotely. And I wish that's the part that I think they should do a better job saying to clients, is that, oh no, if you buy this product, C29 only works because we are upkeeping a graphics card farm that is decompressing these plots. And that needs to be, I think, more clear on their website. I'll bring up their website here. So as you can see on their website here that I've brought up, and I'll scroll down, you can see they're advertising the C29, 211%. with every kit, but there is no mention anywhere, at least in big bold writing. They might have it, in some small writing somewhere on some product page that I haven't found. So I'm not saying it's not anywhere, but there's nothing in here that says, "Oh, this is being locally done or remotely done." Nowhere. Nowhere does it say that. Um, it doesn't really tell you anything about how the decompression process works. I am curious, and I'll just go quickly into a specific product. Why not? Um, we'll click on this one, see if maybe it says a little more information. I don't think it does. Include C29 decompression, calculate rewards here, blah, 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 blah. No, it doesn't. So yeah, like there's nothing really in here that says anywhere that you're relying on them to maintain a graphics card decompression facility for all the kits they've ever sold that are C29. And to me, that's a huge risk. I mean, what if they go out of business? I mean, at that point, I'm just throwing these forward drives out. I mean, they won't work anymore. It's just not going to happen. I guess in theory I could replot them myself, but again, I don't have time and care enough about CHIA to really do that. Honestly, I'd probably just sell them, and if someone wants to fiddle with them, all the power to them. But like again, the fact that you're relying on remote decompression, which has not only a lot more failure points in the process because it's connecting to something remotely that is not in your control, you're also relying on them to stay in business, whereas the at least the rest of my units would largely keep operating, um, to some degree. Yeah, sure, it has a proprietary operating system. If something went wrong with that, I'd either have to be smart enough to figure it out or whatnot. But again, it's just not to me. This C29 is not the way to go. I know it's a huge boost, and when it is working, it these drives make so much more than they ever did prior. I mean, it is absolutely crazy how much more these four drives are producing for me than before. I mean, it was almost comical at before. I think it was like 64 gigabytes total, and now it's averaging like 150. Um, but honestly, I was thinking about changing all my drives to C29 just because of the 211% that you can see like is advertised. Like to me, that would have been crazy. Like, wow, I'm gonna be like um over a petabyte on Chia. And I'm not gonna do it now. I'm being 100% honest with you guys. I don't think that C29, at least how it's currently implemented by Evergreen, it's ready for prime time. I've had way too many issues. It's definitely not plug and play. You definitely have to, be on your toes, keep an eye on it, make sure it's still working every single day. And if it's not, you have to reach out to support, and their support's been great. I don't get me wrong. Jacob, Jacob, and Dylan have been fine to work with. But the thing is, it just isn't the plug and play that I was looking for, that I thought it was. Um, it is what it is at this point. I'm happy that I have 20 drives that are always working and always making me Chia. And luckily, it's just these four drives that are going to be a nuisance forever. Um, who knows? Maybe I will change them to C5 at some point if it really continues to irk me enough. Um, or I'll keep them on C29 just to see if C29 ever becomes viable. But like I said, right now, to me, I don't really view C29 decompression as currently implemented by Evergreen as a viable, ready for prime time, ready for commercial sales product, unfortunately. And it's really kind of sad that all their products are C29 now. There is no option to buy anything that does local decompression. Everything is C29. And for that reason, I I'm not planning to buy anything else from them at the moment. I can honestly say I don't really recommend anyone else to do that either. Um, Maybe that'll change in time. Hopefully it does. Again, I really do like what they're trying to do here because Chia mining is not the most user friendly or approachable like a lot of GPU mining or CPU mining is. Um, but I feel like with the C29 change and move to that, they finally got they finally figured out all the problems, right? Getting a good product out that was reliable, that had good Raspberry Pi in it, that was stable, continually worked, uh, moved to injection molding. So all these things, they finally figured out like the first version of this properly. Because again, I had a lot of issues with the original unit I received, the V1 hub. By the V3 hub for the Tails edition, finally working great. Um, and then they threw in the C29, and now we're, it's almost like a prototype again, unfortunately. Um, and hopefully they keep working on it. Hopefully it does get better. But yeah, at this time, I can't recommend C29 based Evergreen mining. It's just too unpredictable. It's too unstable, and unless you're willing to put the time and effort, you're gonna be um, honestly disappointed with the results. And now, if you're willing to put in the time and effort and everything I've said, those are things you're willing to trade off for the improvement of using it, or again, you just want to get into CHIA and you missed the train on all the older um, compression levels, and now they only have C29, but are okay with all these drawbacks I'm mentioning. All the power to you. I'm not going to tell you not to. You do you. I'm just saying, for me personally, I don't personally recommend it at this time, and hopefully they do improve it. I think they are. I think they will. I mean, clearly they've shown that they iterate their products over time, and the products have gotten better. This is kind of a two steps forward, one step back situation here. Corrected a lot of issues with the original product, but then maybe pushed the envelope a little too far. But yeah, other than that, which is a lot, I am back to CHIA mining for the most part for now. And on these 4 drives, the other drives working like a dream, always have been. Can't complain much. I can show you one of them here. Here, I'll bring up one. I do still have 4 farmers, so I got a new farmer for those replotted drives, but then the 3 farmers from my group of 10, and then 2 groups of 5 of those orange drives are still there. So this is, as you can see, the group of 10 drives, and here's all my partials, and everything looks great, and you can see all the blocks that I've made, and it's doing great over time. I can't complain at all. It's really just unfortunately these C29 drives. So that's all I got today on my CHIA farming. Hopefully it helps you or gives you some idea of what to expect if you jump into the C29 Evergreen mining game. Again, I don't personally think it's ready for prime time. I think we should all wait a little longer until they get some things fleshed out, or maybe there's an option where you can do local decompression that is, at least better than C5, or maybe they offer something in between. I don't really know. But I hope you found this helpful. Kind of just showing you my experience here. But that's all I got for today on my CHIA farming with my Evergreen miners. Until next time.